yeah, so it's weird because I look back now and I think, oh my gosh, I was young kissing Scott, but it was so innocent when we filmed it. It was supposed to be just a peck, and I kind of went more for it. I think it was more me than him. It was definitely not him. I think it was Madonna egging me on, like, kiss him. She really was egging me on.
Welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel, a Quantum Leap podcast. Hello, everybody. This is Dennis here. This week, we're excited to have Holly Fields on the show. Holly, of course, played Jill in the original series' first season episode, Camikaze Kid. Holly was very gracious to give us her time one Sunday afternoon a few weeks ago. During our chat, we talked about her getting started in Hollywood back in the 80s and her 100-plus appearances in movies, TV, and commercials, and then her transition into voiceover work. This includes being Cameron Diaz's vocal double for over 20 years, and her work in several Star Wars video games. And of course, we talk about her appearance on Quantum Leap. She had some great stories to share about how wonderful Scott and Dean and the rest of the crew were. We talked about Madonna visiting her on set during that final scene. And of course, we talk about that kiss in that final scene. It's funny, during our initial phone call setting things up, Holly asked if we even wanted to touch that subject at all, knowing how problematic some might see that moment through a modern-day lens. And of course, we assured her that's exactly the kind of place where Fate's Wide Wheel loves to go. But before our interview with Holly, some major news broke today. Quantum Leap has been picked up for a second season. Sam and I got together to share a few thoughts.
All right, Leapers, it's time. We have the official announcement for the renewal of Quantum Leap for Season 2 on Monday, December 12th, 2022. That is early.
That is early.
That's awesome
Take
news.
That, as someone else posted on Facebook earlier today. Take that, haters.
That's right. That's right. We'll sip some of my Guinness Zero here. That's right. 0% alcohol.
Yeah, I'm gonna sip some tea out of my Scott Bakula Quantum Leap mug.
I love it. I love it. I was drinking some coffee out of my my Al mug earlier. No, seriously, it's incredible news. We had heard through the grapevine. Let's see, it would have been probably a few weeks back. It was definitely a few weeks back because it was right around the time that they went on their mid-season break, that they were going to be re-airing episodes every Monday and Saturday throughout the break. And then we got word shortly after that was not going to be the case. And we heard from a couple of different sources that one of the reasons behind that, and we kind of had hinted at that on the podcast and on our social media, but now we'll kind of confirm it. We had heard from a couple of different sources that the reason why they decided not to do that is because the network was extremely confident in the series and felt like they didn't need to do the re-airings, which I thought at the time was incredibly good news. Everybody else seemed to think it was incredibly good news. The really cool thing is that in the official article that was released by Deadline, I believe Deadline was the first to go with it, and Hollywood Reporter and Variety had it shortly after that. Confirmed that it is the number one new drama that has ever dropped on Peacock. Like, no hour-long drama show has ever performed as well as Quantum Leap has on Peacock, which is awesome news. It's also number 2 across the board for new series. So, and that's not just NBC, that's across the board. So I think that this kind of confirms a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, and sort of assuming, for better or worse, that the show is performing very, very well, especially on streaming. And I mean, there is no greater confirmation of that than a renewal for season 2 in December. I mean, that's practically unheard of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm about ready to go.
We're in business.
I'm about ready. As I quote tweeted our tweet from our Twitter account, I was like, happy to announce we're going to be back on our bullshit for another year.
Right. Yeah.
So that's fantastic news. And
I
just want to rub it in the faces of all of the haters who were posting those articles like, the show's on the bubble at best, whatever. Anyway, wonderful news. So I'm ready to call Camikaze Kid our lucky episode.
Our good luck charm, huh?
Our good luck charm, because we're getting ready to go into our interview with Holly that we did a few weeks ago. And, because I had already recorded some bumpers, which you heard at the beginning of the episode and you'll hear at the end. so we were debating like whether or not like how much to record here. And I decided that I really wanted to record like a live bumper because I realized that when we did our Camikaze Revisited episode back in the spring, that was on the same episode where we got to say that Quantum Leap had officially been picked up as a series.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
Yes. And so as soon as I realized no, we have to live record something to talk about it.
I think that we absolutely had to do it. And, there's no sense in trying to do some sort of weird deep dive or belabor the point, keep it short and simple at the top of this episode and then get to our interview with Holly. But, we had to say something. I mean, we've been talking about this now for 10 months, basically, from the moment we got the pilot script into our hands and there was an announcement that there would be a pilot shoot. Like, we've been talking about it for almost the entirety of 2022. And we've tried to just, stay on top of it as best we can. And my wife, Jessica, she looked at me today when I told her the news, and she looked at me today and she was just sort of like, just think when you guys started this podcast, like, there was no inkling that this would be a possibility. And I was like, the show had been off the air for almost 25 years. Like, this wasn't, at all in the conversation anymore. I think any sort of true, honest to goodness, active conversation about the potential for some sort of reboot or continuation had been tabled for a while. Like, nobody was talking about it. Yeah. And then somewhere along the way, like Peacock, the rumors about Peacock started, and around the same time the rumors of Peacock starting, there was rumors about Quantum Leap coming back, and we wrote most of that off. I certainly did. We talked about it a few times on the episode, or on the podcast rather. But it wasn't until late last year when Bakula did the Bob Saget podcast, actually, of all things, that we were sort of like, And then Deborah Pratt had released a statement about like active conversations are taking place, but we need the fans and all this sort of stuff. And I love Deborah Pratt, but I kind of almost wrote that off even because I was just sort of like, oh, well, of course, she wants it to come back. I want it to come back. She wants it to come back. I don't know if it's even a reality. And then all of a sudden it was a reality. And now we've been talking about it. And we've spent again, this past year living in a world where Quantum Leap is no longer something that's been off the air, but something that's in production. And will continue to be in production throughout 2023. We know, based off of things that have been out there for a while now, that Martin and the team have plans, that they wanted to do a single season arc for this first season, a story that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that there were plenty of ideas, especially for the way to leave the season finale in order to set up a second season. We've heard from a couple of sources, nothing specific. We don't know anything plot-wise, detail-wise, or anything. All we know is that there has been a plan this whole time, and part of the plan was, if we don't get a second season, we have a way to finish things. If we do get a second season, we've got a way to lead into that. So I am thrilled with that possibility.
I'm super excited. Yeah, we do have some snippets. Somebody asked on our Discord earlier today, like, if we heard anything about the second half of the season. And this was before, like, we heard the announcement that there was going to be a second season. They were just asking, like, the second half of this season. Yeah. So we, thanks to another source, like, we get to see, like, little snippets of audition sides, like the pages that they give people who are auditioning. So, of course, we have the transgender high school athlete story that's coming up. We definitely know that. We have,
I believe that will be episode 12.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
We have a leap that seems Ben is a doctor in a hospital. It seems like he's not just there to save one person. He's there to save multiple people in the hospital throughout the day. And what was the other? Oh, and another one. It's kind of almost set up like Groundhog Day.
Don't say anything more than that.
And I'm not gonna say anything more than that. It's just kind of set up like Groundhog Day. So it seems like this first half of the season they were really just warming up, finding their footing, and like it seems like that they're just going balls to the wall in the second half of the season.
Yeah,
and just giving us some.
a lot, a lot of the things that we've been able to kind of pull together again from disparate sources, and nobody that necessarily is directly working on the show right now, but is that they are definitely trying new things, pushing boundaries, really wanting to attempt things that no one else is doing on network television right now, which I applaud them for. And it's been, I think, a feeling that we've started to get from the first half of the season, but obviously the second half of the season, I think they're going to up the ante. And the idea that now we're going to get a second season, man, you can only kind of imagine the types of things that they'll try to pull together. Here's the thing that I'll throw out, because obviously I'm sure there are a lot of people that are listening that are wanting to ask this same question, and we have no details whatsoever on this from any sources. So we'll just say that right off the bat. This is pure speculation. But Dennis, do you think the season 2 renewal increases our chances that Martin and Ernie, because, he's been campaigning for it too, will finally deliver on Scott Bakula?
I was thinking about it today. Middle of massage, because I'm a massage therapist. I was thinking about it mid-massage. I was like, I wonder with Scott, when he saw that announcement for the second season, he's like, fuck. Calling his agent, going, all right.
It's like, okay, now we got to do this.
have him send me another pitch. No, yeah. No.
I think so. I think nothing is guaranteed, obviously, and certainly we labored under the delusion, perhaps, before, gosh, it would have been before the summer, I believe. We were going off of just the basis of reading that pilot script that we were kind of convinced that he was going to be a part of it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when we realized that he was not going to be a part of it at the beginning, we still were kind of laboring under that delusion that, like, well, he's still going to be involved. And then, of course, his statement was released, and it was kind of like, all right.
Well, he's still going to be involved.
Right. Certainly, I think we left the door open enough that it was just sort of like, okay, we'll see. And then I became more and more comfortable with the notion of like, no, he's not. And that's fine. Let's see what we've got. And what we've gotten has been incredible and wonderful. And, I think that the thing that the show has done for us that we've talked a lot about, both online and on the podcast is kept the spirit of the characters alive in numerous ways without necessarily having to have Scott Bakula involved. So while I do think that this probably increases the likelihood of Sam Beckett making an appearance in the flesh, as opposed to just, comments here and there or a, an old publicity photo, I do think that, that the show has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it can stand on its own. So it would be really cool if that happens, but if it doesn't, I am positive that they have done more than enough to create their own way. Much like Scott even said in his release about, them doing their own thing. And, again, I know that there are a lot of people out there that want it to happen. And I think that this increases the likelihood, but again, I don't think it's necessary. Although I want it to happen. Like, oh yeah, make no mistake, I want it. Of course I want it. I mean,
here's the thing: is I was thinking about it today. I want it to happen, and we're not, and we're somewhat connected. We have some sources, but even having sources, I do not want to know until I see him on screen.
Right.
I hope somehow that happens for us. That even our sources can't get us this info. I'm telling you this right now. If you are one of our sources and you are listening or watching to this podcast right now, I am telling you, under no circumstances, tell Fate's Wide Wheel if Scott Bakula is going to be involved. I do not.
Under no circumstances, tell Dennis of Fate's Wide.
All right, I'm telling you, under no circumstances, if you find out, do not tell me, because I don't want to know until I see Scott Bakula on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, look, there's magic to that, right? I mean, we've talked about it before. We've had listeners talk about it in like the Facebook group or on Twitter and stuff about, the one of the ones that just pops into my head right off the bat is Clooney's guest appearance on ER when Juliana Margulies had her last episode, and how they kept that under wraps, and how it was just really nice to see him in that episode. I guess in a way I've gotten to a point where it's just sort of like, yeah, I'm cool with it. Like you can keep some things to yourself, sure, but I don't mind knowing. Okay. No, I think again, we've been incredibly lucky to get some heads up here and there. And I hope that continues. But if it were to stop, it would certainly not dampen my enthusiasm for the show. It would certainly not dampen my enthusiasm for the fact that, again, we're going to get a second season. I'm so thrilled. It's almost, I almost feel like it's a pinch me moment, because earlier I was walking around the grocery store, and for some reason I had just been having this amazing day, right? I took my daughter. My wife and I took our daughter to see Bluey's big play at Chicago Theater yesterday, and it was so magical, and I got so emotional. I was choked up, just overwhelmed a couple of times. One of the reasons is because it made me think of when my grandmother took me, when I was 4 or 5 years old, to see a production of The Hobbit at the Waterloo Community Playhouse, of all places. And that's magic, man. That instance right there, like if I really had to try to draw a line back to one event that set me off on a certain path, it was that experience. You've seen those dwarves come through, watching the choreography basically of the plates and everything, and then of course seeing Smaug come to life on stage. Like it was incredible, and I'm sure my memory is embellished some or whatever. But anyway, now I'm sitting here as a father, and I'm watching my 4-year-old see these, life-size puppets just come to life, and this incredible puppetry work by these amazing, incredible, athletic, puppeteers who are doing some incredible stuff, and just the magic of the show, and of course, being a big fan of Bluey in general and the story, and it was so incredible. So I'm flying high from that, flying high from, parenthood and family, etc. And today I'm just having a really, really wonderful day. And then I go to the grocery store, and for some reason I'm just filled with like this just sadness, at the grocery store, and I cannot explain it.
Which grocery store?
Woodman's.
I've never even heard of it. All right.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like you walk in and you think to yourself, no grocery store has any business being this large, but it's enormous. But you don't need a membership. It's not in bulk. It's not like one of those things. It's just like a regular grocery store, only it's 10 times the size of a normal grocery store. Anyway, I'm walking around and I'm just kind of feeling sad all of a sudden, and I don't know why. I cannot put my finger on it. And then I get home and I'm still kind of feeling like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, like I get an alert on my phone. And I see it, and I'm like, holy shit, like this is happening. And just again, like that sort of childlike joy that immediately filled me. And it seems almost a little unreal. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the fact that, like, here we are. Season 2 of Quantum Leap, or as the Quantum Leap podcast mentioned on their Facebook page, season 7 of Quantum Leap.
Yes, season 7. Yeah, it is fantastic. So for me, that play that did it for me as a kid was a high school production of The Wizard of Oz in my hometown. An embellishment. I mean, I know it was just a horrible, bad high school production.
Sure,
but like from the eyes of a kindergartner, it was like seeing a show on Broadway.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I get it.
Totally get it. To address the elephant in the room, or should we say the backgrounds that you don't normally see behind us in the room. So if you are watching this on YouTube, we're playing around with using Riverside instead of Zoom because Riverside has a few more bells and whistles. But unfortunately, one bell and or whistle that they do not have is a green screen background. So this is we were talking before we hit record. If we do decide to stick with this setup, we'll put some stuff behind us so it looks a little bit more exciting. But if you are watching us on YouTube, and you normally do, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think, if this is a higher quality, if you enjoy this better than you enjoy us on Zoom. We appreciate that.
Do we sound better? I won't ask if we look better, but I will ask if we sound better.
I was like, yeah, we talked about being on camera before we hit record, and Sam was like, I'm not camera ready. And I'm like, we have her camera ready? And then one more thing, and then we should throw to the interview.
Yeah, we should definitely do.
So here's the thing. You were talking about, like, there was never going to be a new series. We kind of given up hope. Here's the thing. I don't think I've told even you. So about a year and a half ago, this would have been like April and May of 2021, I started a Twitter account called Peacock Give Us a Quantum Leap Sequel, You Cowards. And every single day I posted the exact same thing, or I just copy and pasted it every single day. Another day that Peacock has not given us a Quantum Leap sequel, you cowards. And I tweeted it directly at them every single day. I did not attach it to our Twitter at all. I didn't like it. I didn't retweet it. I just wanted to see if it would catch any traction on its own, and I did not want it to be attached to Fate's Wide Wheel because I didn't want any beef.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't want anything to fly onto us. I did it for maybe a month. Never got any traction. Didn't hardly maybe a couple likes. That was it. So I just deleted the account.
And now it's the number one new show on Peacock.
And now I wish I had kept the bit going because it would have taken like a half a year, but
yeah,
it would have paid off. Anyway, that's my story.
Man, it's great. I'll say, in addition to you mentioning the Riverside thing, that thank you to everyone who has supported us, through Patreon or buy me a coffee rather, because that's one of the reasons why we're experimenting with this. We're using some of that financial assistance, if you will, to experiment and try and up our game, because obviously, we got another year of this at least. So we want to try and give you the best we possibly can. And of course, shout out to folks over at the Quantum Leap podcast for introducing us to Riverside and, kind of showing us a little bit of what it can do. I'll also say real quick, if you haven't already, tis the season. Check out the A Little Miracle podcast, which we drop not only on our feed, but also on their feed. So you can get it either through Quantum Leap podcast or Fate's Wide Wheel, either way. We had a lot of fun doing that with Matt Dale. And then, of course, our last episode was wonderful to sit down and talk with Matt because we hadn't had a chance to do that in far too long. And we had such a wonderful time. And the feedback we've gotten so far has just been fantastic. And we really, really, really appreciate that. And if you supported us...
I was going to say, not to mention the episode that we did with Lauren Milberg.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of wonderful feedback for that as well. Lauren was just a fantastic guest. We loved having her on, and we will certainly look forward to having her back on at some point here in the near future. And just thank you to everyone who has literally ever listened to us, even if you're not listening to us right now. Thank you so much, because through your listenership, through your encouragement, through your participation, it's given us the opportunity to keep talking for the past 5+ years. And now here we are. We could have called it a day like 2 years ago when we finished the initial run of the original series, and just been like two guys sitting around being like, oh my God, Quantum Leap's back on. But because of the encouragement, the participation, the listenership, we kept going, and we've kept going, and we've had the opportunity now to talk about the new show, to have guests on. And I think that things just look pretty bright, and we've got more guests coming. We've got more great conversations coming, hopefully more exclusive information and inside tidbits, and more collaborations down the road as well. So just thank you. And I hope you're not walking around a grocery store feeling sad like I was.
Yeah. And with that... Glad your day got better. Our day definitely got better.
Our day definitely picked up, yeah.
Yeah. So I will say, like as you always like to say, leap responsibly. We're going to thank some patrons, and then we'll go into our interview with Holly. We want to thank our patrons who support the show: Al's Place, Leap Fan Site, Bourbon and Boardgames, Carolyn, Cosplay Dad, Joanne Bartlett, Dana Bius, Rich Bourque, Kevin and Kevin Butcher, Carol Davis, Deckslower, Dermot Devlin, Barry Donovan, Brian Dreadful, Troy Evers, Larry Ganni, Jason Geis, Michelle Hoffman, Amy Holtcamp, Bess Korey, Lady Eternal, Robb Nunn, Oddly Specific with Audra, Christopher Redmon, Adrian Saul, Karen Saxon, Mike Stouffer, Heather Strabiak, Damon Chugamelli, Larry Trujillo, Stuart Williams, Jill Wilson, our anonymous donors, and a special shout out to Jessica Conger and Betsy Freimeyer, our spouses who provide vital child care while we record the podcast. If you want to become a patron, you can do it in a couple different ways. If you want to do so monthly, you can do that through patreon.com/fateswide. Or if you would like to make a one-time donation, you can do that through buymeacoffee.com/fateswidewheel. And if you're not in a place where you can financially support the show and want to help, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to our podcast. Reviews help other people find our show, and we greatly appreciate it. Holly, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. And thank you again. I know we did before we started hitting record. Thank you again for being willing to reschedule. We had been rescheduled for last week, and then we had something come up on our end where we had to reschedule at the last minute. So thank you for making time for us again.
No, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're thrilled to have you here. We haven't had the chance to do this very often, so it's exciting to have you on, and of course to talk about your appearance in Camikazi Kid as Jill, among other things. In fact, we were just talking a little bit about Star Wars: The Old Republic, the video game, which you voice the character of Nadia Grell, and I'm just curious. We'll get to Quantum Leap here in a second, but but I being the Star Wars nerd that I am. I would love to hear awesome. I would love to hear a little bit about your voice work on the game and just your experience with basically creating or helping to create this character, and she obviously is a companion to your character in the game, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was a big shock to me because I didn't know I was auditioning for Star Wars. I was told it was called The Old Republic, so I went in and I auditioned, and I couldn't get the lines right, and they wouldn't let me leave until I got them right. I just thought I blew it, and I got home, and my agent called and said, "Hey, by the way, you got the job, and it's Star Wars." And I screamed so loud. I was so excited because I love Star Wars. And so no, and I was the only one they wanted. So the other characters, they had toss a coin for the cast. But I was the only one George Lucas wanted. So that was pretty cool. And I thought it was just going to be one day of work, and ended up being 10 years now worth of work.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because it was 2011, I think, is when that came out. The first. We
started in 2010. It was actually the day Korey passed. That was my first day. He was my ex-fiance, and I had heard about it that he passed, and I had to go and record, and I was trying not to cry and let it affect me, and that was a weird day. It was a great day and a sad day at the same time, but working on that was incredible. Getting to do that job all these years and make that character and grow older with the character has been really cool too.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. It's got to be interesting when you're doing the voice work, and the way that the game updates have kind of dropped. That you really do get this arc, because I know a lot of times, unless it's especially with these online RPGs, you don't necessarily get to do that as much unless it's kind of a standalone game where there's a story that you really follow. And so for this, I'm hoping that there's going to be even more, because I think that the last update would have been a couple of years ago. Is that right?
I didn't even know, actually. They just kept adding me to the different games, but I would go in and I would record and not realizing it was a whole other episode. So because I don't play the game. Yeah, so I was just told by my agent, you're going in, and I would walk in and they'd give me look like a book to read. And you just sit there and you read the lines, each one 3 times, and then you leave. And half the time, there's a lot of games I've worked on that I didn't even know what the name of the project was, because they keep everything a secret. Mm-hmm. So for Star Wars, we had to sign, our NDA was so thick I couldn't talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell my nephew about it. And then they let us talk at Comic-Con, and that was the first time that they allowed us to talk about it. But they wouldn't even let us really talk about it. They gave us like what we could say before we went on stage. And it was like 5 lines we could say. And I'm like, oh my God. So we weren't allowed to talk about it. They really take it seriously, which is great because the people that love the game, they don't want to know about it before they play it. You don't want to ruin it for them. So, but
no chance for anyone to Tom Holland this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then knowing me, I would be that person. So I kept my mouth shut. But it's been I think 10 years now. God, longer actually. Wow. Yeah, and then Shrek, it was nice because like for Shrek, I always have to copy Cameron Diaz, and I've been doing her for over 20 years. So it was fun to finally get to play a character where I got to put my own voice in there rather than Princess Fiona. So.
Right, absolutely. I was actually going to ask you about that next, and just what the work is like when you do have to basically mimic someone else's voice, and yet you're still you're still working, you're still acting, and so I'm just very curious as to what your process was like for Princess Fiona in particular, but I know there've been a couple of others that you've done that with as well.
Yeah, I've done a lot of people like Kate Bosworth, Jennifer Love Hewitt for Ghost Whisperer, Drew Barrymore for Beverly Hills Chihuahua, Paula Abdul, Britney Spears, Brittany Murphy. Like I've done a lot of people, but I think because they like me because I have a good resume for acting, so they know I can act, and they know I'm really good at singing, so I can sound like them. Because singers, for some reason, are really good at copying voices, because it's all about pitch, rhythm, and timing. And then you just kind of take on their energy, and then like we're going to Mexico, but I'm a Chihuahua. The Drew Barrymore is just very. You just change her a little bit, you move your voice around, and then Princess Fiona is like, donkey, Shrek, everyone get up, and it's all up and it's a little bit higher in tone, and everyone's great today. So it's just kind of copying voices. That's kind of my favorite thing to do, actually. But I kind of wanted to break from Princess Fiona because I hadn't gotten to play another character for so long. So getting to play Nadia Gurel was like a dream come true, and hopefully I still get to play her in more jobs coming up. I don't know, they keep everything a secret, so
for sure.
I hope so. I love it, and I love sorry, Ed?
No, I was gonna say, so we are if you usually listen to our show like on the podcast, so we're doing this audio only, so right now we're not seeing Holly, we're just hearing her voice. And I listened to your voice demo earlier today talking about Cameron Diaz, and like there was a little bit of that into the demo, and like now, like especially since we're not looking at you, if I walked in blind to this conversation, you could totally fool me you were Cameron Diaz. And then when you just slipped into Drew Barrymore, like you could have totally fooled me that you were Drew Barrymore.
Thank you. Well, that's why I get paid the good money. But I would do it for free, but they just don't know that. I would do it for free because I don't care about that.
We don't like to tell anybody that.
Don't worry.
I know, but it's just like, stop telling them all that. I really I would do it for free. I love my job. It's been so much fun though. But I went to school with Drew Barrymore, so that was cool getting to play her, and because I used to always mimic her, and it was really fun getting to do Brittany Murphy because we were really close, and I got to I knew her voice so well. And then Cameron Diaz was a dream come true. I was actually doing Touched by an Angel in Utah, and I was flying back, and I just wanted to be her. I just thought she was so cool, and I'm flying back, and I was a teenager at the time, and they cut my hair like hers, and I was telling my friend Bridget Brana, who was next to me, I'm like, look how they cut my hair. We're on the airplane. I said, it's like Cameron Diaz. She said, well, she's now she has short hair. I said, how do you know? She said, because she's right behind us. And she was sitting right behind us. I turned around, I'm like, oh my God, I love you. You're so cool. I was a teenager. And so she was so nice. She was so incredibly nice. And so it was me, Cameron Diaz, Bridget Brana, and the guy on the show. And we all hung out at the airport, and cut to a few years later, my agent, his assistant said, you sound like Cameron Diaz. They're trying to find a voiceover artist for her. Can you audition? And I kept saying, I don't sound like Cameron Diaz. I wish I did. And I auditioned and got it. And then I auditioned again and got it. And then there was like 3 or 4 games. I kept booking the jobs and doing them. And then finally they said, Cameron Diaz wants to hire you full time, because every time she's having to okay the person, and she realized it's the same person. So thanks to her, I got 20 something years of getting to play Princess Fiona. So it's been a pretty awesome 20 years. So 20, I think, what, 25 years now or something.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
2000, 2001. How many Shreks are there?
There's 4, but I've done all the games, dolls, toys, and then I do
sure.
all
Okay.
So yes, I would go into to do the pre-vocals. So I would go in like for months. Like you would go in for hours and record, and then you would go again like 2 weeks later. They would keep changing the script until they were happy with it, and then she would come in and do it. So I did that, and then I would do I did Annie, the other women. I would do a lot of like the revoice lines and stuff for her. So it's a fun job. ADR, a lot of ADR.
Mm-hmm. How difficult? I have friends that have done it, and friends that have done foreign language films, doing the English dubs and that sort of stuff. And so I'm just always curious, that I've talked to them about this too. But did you ever have any difficulty when it came to trying to sync your voice, or is that something that was pretty easy once you saw what you were doing? I know with the video games, it's obviously a different story, but certainly with any of like the shorts or anything like that, have you ever had trouble with that, or is it because it is animated, you don't have to really worry about it as much?
Well, I do the animation, but I also do a lot of like for her live movies as well. So I've done like Sex Tape was one of hers, the teacher one, I can't remember, Bad Teacher. I've done like I think 15 of her films, like, so not just Shrek. So so I've had to sync her lips. Yeah, syncing lips is hard, but I'm really good at rhythm. So if you play me a line of hers without watching, and you just give me 3 takes, I usually get it by the 3rd take. So It's pretty easy, I think. I just think, because I'm a singer, so it's really good. To be a singer and that's a good job for a singer, because it's all about the pitch, rhythm, and timing. So, and then getting to be, you have to be a good actor on top of it. Because I did a movie called Suzanne Summers' Life Story, and there's this great scene where I'm, the father's hitting me and I'm crying, and it was such a great scene. And then they had this girl loop for me. She had to loop the crying scene for me, and she wasn't really crying, and you could hear the difference. So that was one, when I went into this, I remember being so upset about somebody ruining the scene for me that I was determined to never do that for anyone else. I always want to make the scene the same or better. The one movie I was afraid about doing was the one for Kate Bosworth, because she's such an amazing actress. And so I was given the movie to watch, and I just thought, oh my God, I was just so afraid, because she's so perfect. Her acting was so perfect in it. So hopefully I did her justice. I haven't seen the movie again. So that was the one I was scared.
I can only imagine how difficult it would be, because you obviously you're fighting against the fact that you've lost the immediacy of the scene and being there with the other actors, and now you're having to kind of go in after the fact. So yeah, I can only imagine, how difficult it would be, but it sounds like, your process works very well for you, and clearly you have the confidence of, some great people. So kudos for you, because I think that's a really cool, interesting job to have.
It's a really cool job. It's really weird though. People think, oh, she talks for a living. They don't realize like how it's really hard. Like, I mean, just, you go in there, like, especially for Shrek, like a lot of times they'll give me the lines ahead of time. So I'll watch the movies every single time. I'll watch them like a bunch of times to get the words that I'm having to do for each game or each commercial or whatever I'm doing. And then I'll just listen to it over and over and over. And then I won't sleep the night before. I get so nervous because I never want to screw up. I'm such a perfectionist. Like, I have to be there on time, and I'm always like 20 minutes early usually, and at least it's really stressful. You're working for DreamWorks, you're working for Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, like the best of the best. So you want to be perfect, and I'm a perfectionist, so it's very nerve-wracking. It's very nerve-wracking, but it's gone well so far. So I'm thankful.
Well, you've been very well prepared, it seems, because I mean, you've been acting since what? You were like a toddler pretty much, right?
Well, I started in theater when I was 6, and then I started kind of professionally, like in commercials and stuff, when I was 8. So like Molly Ringwald, my brother and Molly and my sister did theater together in Sacramento. And I wanted to do theater too, because I wanted to be like them, because they were all older. And I didn't get an audition. Well, okay, so Molly and my brother and sister were auditioning for Through the Looking Glass, and they all got into it. They wouldn't let me audition. The people said she can't audition because I was too young. So I was crying, and everyone's like, let her audition. So I sang. I think I was 5 or 6, and so I sang, and they let me be Molly's understudy. So Molly and Molly's dad and my mom became friends, and her dad is kind of who pushed my mom because he saw how much I loved it. And so he's like, let her do it if she wants to do it. So, and I really wanted to do it. So I got an agent when I moved to Texas and just auditioned. And because I was that kid that was a perfectionist, I wanted to be, good for everybody. And I loved it. That's why I think I worked. So I did I think 200 commercials by the time I was 18. So wow. I got lucky. Wow. I got lucky. I didn't have a lot of competition. So I think nowadays it would be a lot harder. But back then it was I had 5 other kids in Texas that were competition. So I got lucky. I got lucky.
Now, I saw you talking in another interview about how sometimes you felt like being young held you back. And so it actually, at some point you got emancipated so that you were not held back. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, back then, okay, so it used to be they wanted older to play younger, right? Remember Grease, the show, Olivia Newton-John?
Oh, yeah.
They were 20 playing teenagers. So I was going up against people that were older that could play younger. And so I told my parents I need to get emancipated because they could work longer hours. And so my parents they knew I would do it without them. So they said yes. So I went to a judge, and it was Martika's mom. Remember Martika, Toy Soldiers, back in the 80s, the song Martika, Kids Incorporated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was her mom that got me emancipated. And yeah, it was really easy. And then I took the high school efficiency test. And then I also graduated. I was second in my class because my parents wouldn't let me. The deal was I had to finish high school, and I did. And I was second in my class. So that was good. And so I got to work like I was 18. So everyone thought I was older and looked like way younger in the business because I would tell everyone I was 18 when I was actually I think 15 or 14. So yeah, so because a lot of people didn't know what emancipation was back then. So if you went in and said, I'm 15, but I'm actually emancipated, they didn't know what that meant. So I would just have to go in and say I'm 18. So
interesting.
Of course, yeah.
Because otherwise I kept losing out parts to people that were 18 and older because they could work longer hours.
Right.
I'd have to, when I was a kid, I would have to go to the set for 3 hours, school for 3 hours when I was on set. They'd have to have a person on the set to watch me. So being that I was emancipated, I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have to have a person on the set. I worked longer hours. So that's why I got emancipated.
Of course. So
that's very interesting. Oh, go ahead, Dennis.
I was going to say, tell us, so how did that lead into the audition for Quantum Leap? Because we know from other things that we read that up until a certain point, they were under the impression that you were under 18.
No, well, they wanted someone older that could play younger just because of the kiss. So, sure. but they couldn't find anybody. So I think they thought I was 18 or something, but I went in, I wasn't 18. I was, I think 15. And I think they couldn't find anyone else for the part or something. I'm not sure exactly. They wanted someone naive and like that innocent quality. And that's the quality I had as a kid. I wasn't like the cool kid. I was just kind of like the Olivia Newton-John type kid, the Sandra Dee. So they like that. Yeah. So I remember I just tested for a show called Brand New Life with Barbara Eden for Chris Carter, and I didn't get it. And I was Chris Carter's choice, but NBC had seen me on MacGyver, and they said, no, she's too edgy. Meanwhile, I'm not edgy. I'm an actress. I was playing edgy, but so I was devastated, and I almost skipped the audition for Quantum Leap because no one had heard of it at the time. And my agent said, please go, please go. So I went to it. I met everybody. I fell in love with Don Belisario and Melissa Scoff, the casting director, and everyone was just so awesome. And they gave me the part right then and there. So I think I started it like 2 days later. So yeah. And then I fell in love with Scott and Dean Stockwell, the nicest people in the world.
So it's funny. I wanted to ask you about Dean in particular because he had been described by Scott in particular after his passing as to always being very protective of the younger cast members that would be on set, because obviously, you know, his experiences as a child actor. So I'm very curious as to what that relationship was like, and did you feel as though he was protective of you, or, you know, due to the fact that you didn't necessarily have a lot of scenes with him, there wasn't a whole lot of interaction, so you weren't able to get that vibe?
No, I actually got to know Dean really well.
Yeah.
I actually hung out with him a lot after filming the show. Every time
Oh,
I was at
wow.
Universal, they became really close. I would go hang out at Universal Studios. They would always invite me to lunch. I remember sitting with Dean on the back lot of Universal Studios, or was it? Well, yeah, Universal, and just hanging out and talking. Like, it was the best conversation about being a kid actor. They were all protective of me. Scott was worried kind of about the kiss. They just wanted to make it, you know, make sure it was not a bad experience for me because I was a kid, and they wanted to make it really innocent. So, but Dean was really, he was really funny. Like, I remember he was, if I don't know if you saw the photos on my Instagram, there's a photo of Scott and I were about to, you know, we're rehearsing the kiss, and Alan Levy, the director, is there, and Dean took his chair and put it right in front, like he was watching a movie, and and giving directions. But it was, we were filming that at the train station. Actually, that was the first time we filmed the kiss, and everyone knew that I was worried about the kiss because I had never kissed a boy ever. I was, you know, I was a kid, and so we had to reshoot the kiss a few days later, and I thought they were joking because they knew that I was worried about it, and I was like, yeah, ha, ha. And they go, no, he has to disappear during the kiss. This is his first time, and they couldn't get him to disappear because the train station was in the background. So we have to have the sky in the background. So we reshot the kiss at the studio, and they were doing Dick Tracy next door. So Madonna and Warren Beatty had just come out, and they're hanging. There's Madonna and Warren Beatty watching me on, like, I think 3 apple boxes because Scott Bakula is so tall, kissing Scott.
Sure, yeah.
And the first time I had my mom behind a tree taking photos, no joke, like she was taking photos. It was so embarrassing.
Oh my
gosh. And that,
gosh.
I thought nothing could get worse than that. No, now I've got Madonna and Warren Beatty like standing there watching us make out. And but Scott was wonderful about it, and everyone was wonderful about it. They definitely took care of me and made sure everything was, you know, innocent on set, and, you know, made sure I was comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's wonderful to hear, because, you know, frankly, when we did our initial review of the episode, it was something that, you know, we early on kind of tried to have a mission of contextualizing the episodes based off of, you know, when they were written, when they aired, you know, and also when they were set, and then of course, you know, in present day. And from, you know, present day, it was definitely something that we saw as being a bit problematic, and yet also acknowledging, of course, that these are professionals. Everything we've always heard about Scott is he's incredible, he's amazing. But I'd be curious to know your take, and not just necessarily from the context of, you know, Holly the actor and Scott the actor, but also just within the context of the episode itself, that you have Sam, who's, you know, the character is supposed to be in his early 40s, and then you have Jill, who's supposed to be, you know, 15 or 16, and just kind of how that your interpretation of that, not only at the time when you were in the episode, but looking back on it now.
Yeah, you know, it actually is very interesting, because back then I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, oh my God, I'm, you know, having to kiss this guy. I didn't even think of him as older. It was interesting because it was a different time back then. I did Charles in Charge back then with Nicole Eggert and Scott Baio. And back then I thought, oh, she's so cool, because I thought they were dating back then. I'm not sure exactly what was happening back then, but I thought they were dating. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, if they were dating, that would be really bad, because I was like 15 and she must have been 17 or something. And so it's weird because I look back now and I think, oh my gosh, I was young kissing Scott, but it was so innocent. When we filmed it, it was supposed to be just a peck, and I kind of went more for it. I think it was more me than him. It was definitely not him. I think it was Madonna egging me on, like, kiss him. She really was like egging me on. So I could, and so I it was very innocent, but it was just a kiss. It was I don't know. I mean, if I were my child, I don't know. being that Scott is Scott and the nicest guy ever, it would have been different if it were some other actor, maybe. But Scott is like Mr. Great Guy, like not good guy, great guy. Like he all of those guys, Don Belisario, all of them were like Alan Levy, the best of the best, the nicest people you could ever imagine to work for. And that set the bar for me as a kid, because I thought that's how everybody is. And I remember being told that how lucky I was to work with this cast and crew because they were so nice. And I was told that not all cast and crews are that nice. And they were right. I mean, most cast and crews are wonderful, but that cast and crew were like, they were exceptional. So, and then I got
so great to hear.
Yeah, then I got to work with them again on JAG years later. So same amazing people, but yeah, no, I think looking back, it is kind of, yeah, the age difference is interesting, but it wasn't uncomfortable at all. It was more just embarrassing because Madonna was there, I think. And I loved Madonna. For me, well, I mean, I was, I was so naive. Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking about this before before we started recording, is the fact that you had actually just done a Pepsi commercial with Madonna prior to this. So she, like, you knew her, you had worked with her, she knew you. And so, I mean, I imagine that made it even a little bit more odd.
I wanted to die. I was so embarrassed. No, she had picked me for the Pepsi commercial. So she picked me and the director. They were, I was her choice for the commercial. So she was so nice. We got to hang out on set for 3 days filming the commercial. And then I think it was like a month later that we filmed Quantum Leap. So she remembered me and came over and she was talking to me. She's a really cool person, actually. I thought she was she is intimidating, but she told me she's intimidating because otherwise she would be taken advantage of in the business. So she becomes kind of bitchy around people, but in person, she's really nice. But yeah, no, she was definitely telling me to, like, kiss him, go for it. So yeah.
That's fascinating to hear about her. Actually, my wife and I were having a conversation about her not long ago because she's been in the news a bit lately with her Instagram and that sort of stuff. And one of the comments that I had even made to my wife is the fact that she had to be that assertive. She had to be that way because when she came along, it was definitely at a time where it would have been very easy for people to take advantage of her, very easy for people to direct, what she should do or shouldn't do career-wise even. And so for her to, to take control in that way and to have that kind of persona, I think that it's fascinating, especially given the careers of other women that have come after her, and how much, that they do kind of owe a bit to the way that she, took care of herself, basically.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I never thought about that. You're right. She kind of paved way for a lot of us.
Yeah, and so going back to Camikaze Kid real quick, this is something that Dennis and I talked about, back when we did our initial episode on Camikaze Kid, and I'd be interested to get your take on this. I always thought, for Jill getting her first kiss, like this is a big moment, and yet Cam is not there for it because it's Sam in his place. So Cam doesn't get to get that first kiss.
Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Wow, you're right. Wow. Or he kind of did because he comes back during the kiss. So in the middle of the kiss is back. Mm-hmm.
What do you think that would be like? Like to come back and be like, wait, what's happening?
Exactly. I never even thought about that. Wow. Yeah.
That's we have far too much time on our hands to think about these things.
Well, because we've talked a lot about if they were to do the show now, they probably would have Sam leap out before, and then they would show us the kiss between Jill and Cam. And it's interesting, and I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of the new show. While they have not had a situation exactly like that situation, it is clear that they are going to handle those kind of situations very differently on the new show. You just kind of skirt around those issues and be more mindful of those issues.
Yeah, and I think they were actually mindful in the episode because Scott's character turned to Dean Stockwell's character, and he was kind of like, "Yeah, go." It wasn't like, "Yeah, let's go for it." It was more like, "Should I kiss her?" So it was a little bit.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They were. The characters were cautious, and but it is interesting though to think about how times have changed.
Right. Well, And speaking of that, even the fact that like Jill throughout most of this episode, we see her baseball cap and, oil smudges and, she's this gearhead working on the cars with Cam and everything. And then she kind of has to have that transformation in a way to look more appealing. And I think that, in a way, looking at that from our 2022 eyes, I think that that's unfortunate. Shouldn't she just be able to continue being who she is and still, have that opportunity, that moment with Cam? And yet at the same time, I think that that's a very, standard trope, especially for when that episode was set. The girl had to look a certain way. And I was just curious as to what your thoughts are on that, and the fact that, going from the ball cap and jeans to the dress and, the curled hair.
Yeah, that's how I was raised, actually, thinking that that's what guys wanted. Being in the business that I'm in, like you go in looking with a baseball hat and makeup, they treat you differently than when you go in all sexy. That's just kind of the way the world is, and it would be great if it would change. But I just think they're keeping true to life. Unfortunately,
And didn't you say elsewhere that when you first shot it, they had you looking differently in braids and that?
No. Originally, yeah, they wanted to have my character wearing braids, but then I looked like I was 12, so they had to put my hair back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if part of like looking the way you look, the way it appeared finally wasn't just about like getting you prettied up, because that was supposed to be the image, but they were trying to make you look as old as possible to kind of take the edge off of it.
I'm not sure, but maybe that's a possibility, but I never thought about that. But I thought it was more just getting her, making her feel comfortable.
Sure.
I don't know. Actually, I never even thought about that. You guys think a lot. I like that. You're bringing all this stuff to my attention.
It's just, because like we didn't know, like it's great to hear like everyone seemed to be very mindful of it at the time.
Very,
and
very.
like, we didn't know like what the thought was. Like you said, like there's this great moment between Sam and Dean, or Scott and Dean, where they look at each other and they have that look where you point out like, and like, is this okay? And like Dean's reaction, especially just that adorable, like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Sam,
go
go for it. Yeah. And Scott's look was so perfect. Like, it was so sweet. Like, okay, it was like a fatherly kind of like, but and he was like so fatherly towards me, actually, because like I was just new to the business. I mean, I'd been working in Texas all those years, but new to doing TV shows. I had done a movie, The Dirt Bike Kid, in Texas. That was it at the time. And then I had done like MacGyver and like some other shows. But yeah, he set up all my dailies, all my scenes in his big trailer, and he was filming all day long. He said, I won't be there. Go take my trailer for the day. Watch all your scenes, because he wanted me to feel comfortable. He said, they're really good. Go watch yourself. Which was like the best acting. Yeah, right. The best acting lesson ever, and gave me the keys. And I was so worried about hurting his trailer. But yeah, so I got to sit there in his trailer watching, and on his TV watching all the dailies that I had done, which was so kind. Like, who does that? No other actors.
That's incredible.
Ever. Yeah. And I've worked with the best. I've never had any jerk actors. I've been very blessed to work with the best of the best, kindest people. But Scott was like above and beyond. So I love him.
We do too. And we love hearing that about him, because the truth of the matter is for both of us, like, he was like one of our heroes growing up. We watched this show when we were like, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And so it's been with us for a very long time. And now, to hear these great stories about him, it's always just so affirming, because, it's always a bummer when the people that you kind of hold in high esteem turn out to disappoint you. I know. Which we get a lot of. So the fact that Scott's,
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. We joke about the only time we've ever heard of Scott Bakula being rude was during the finale of Enterprise.
Oh, really? Because they had to be. Yeah, and Don Belisario he's also wonderful, because that's obviously why he hired Scott, because they're very similar. Just good guys. Like, everyone was so good. And I'd actually was Don Belisario wanted me to come back. They couldn't find an actress for another episode. Like, it was like, I think 2 episodes after, where they wanted this sister, a bratty sister or something like that. So I had to go to Universal Studios to wait.
I think that was actually, it was a couple years later, because
years?
Because if I got the episode right, I think it was Runaway, which was a 3rd season episode.
Oh.
Because yeah, I mean, because in another interview you mentioned like Amy Foster. had
Yeah,
gotten
Amy-
the role.
Yeah,
and
Amy
she
Foster got it.
and she ends up playing the older sister in Runaway.
Okay, yeah. Well, it felt like days, a long time ago, I guess. But yeah, so I had to go to Universal Studios and wait, and I was going to go right to wardrobe and start filming the next day. But then Amy got it, and so that happened. I was so bummed, but Amy was great. So.
I am bummed right now for you. I am bummed for myself.
Yeah,
Hearing that because like that would have been such a cool switch in dynamic to have you play Jill, like this guy who was sweet on the person that Sam leaped into, and then to turn around and be the bratty older
sister. That would have been so cool.
That antagonizes him the entire episode. That would have been so wonderful for fans too.
Yeah, and they used to do that back then. They used to have a lot of actors and actresses play on different seasons and play different characters. So, but nowadays they don't do that as much.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. You know, and speaking of like some of the other actors in this episode, one of the people that obviously would go on almost immediately after this to do something else and have a lot of success would have been Jason Priestley.
Jason, yeah.
Yeah. And so I would love to hear about your experience working with him because, you know, again, this is literally like a stone's throw away from 90210 and all the success that he would have with that. And he plays a pretty big jerk in this episode. So I'd love to hear about your experience working with him.
Oh no, he's great. Yeah, so the first time I met Jason, we were sitting in a car going to the set from our soundstage, our trailers, and he had sunglasses on. Then he took them off, and you could see these gorgeous blue eyes, and just gorgeous guy. And he was so nice. We had just done MacGyver, and I think that was the only thing he had done at the time, and the only thing I really had done for TV wise at the time. And we kind of had that in common, so we hung out together on set because we just kind of hung out together a lot. I just remember him holding my purse. He would always hold my purse for me whenever I would go to, craft service. He was so sweet. No, just the nicest guy. And then, then he tried to get me this. He was doing this other show after Sister something where there were orphans living in a nunnery. And he was trying to get me to play the part. He wanted me for the character. And then there was another show he was trying to get me for, and it was Jenny Garth that got the part. And Jenny, the weird thing is, Jenny Garth and I had tested together for the show Brand New Life, with the one I didn't get where I almost did an audition for Quantum Leap because NBC wanted her. Yeah, it was so, I never even thought about that till just now. Yeah, so I was up for 90210. I was up for her part, and I was told I was first choice. But there was this other show called Whole High that I loved. Because I sing and I dance. And that was for NBC. And back then, no one had heard of Fox, and it was called Beverly Hills High. And I just thought, which one would I rather do? Kenny Ortega for NBC and guest star, possibly recurring, which ended up becoming a regular, or Beverly Hills High, who I just thought it would be one episode and just the pilot, and it wouldn't go anywhere. But that ended up going in Whole High. We got canceled. We were sold for 13 and we got canceled because it was Disney and we were really expensive. But so I chose the wrong one, but it happens a lot.
Sure.
I'm good at choosing the wrong shows. I've had so many. I had the middle sister on Charmed, and I got bumped for Shannon Doherty's best friend. I mean, I got Blossom recurring on Blossom. The show got canceled. I actually had the part of 6 because Jenna Vanoy had gotten she had gotten 2 pilots at once, Blossom and another pilot. The other one sold, and that's the one she was going to do, but it ended up getting canceled. So then I didn't get to play 6, and she came back and got to do 6. So it happens so much in this town. There's always stories like that. But yeah, I've done so many shows, and I had Stargate, any role I wanted on Stargate, and I passed on that. That was stupid, but
oh no.
Yeah, I know. And that's such a great show. And the reason why I passed is because I called the producer just to say hi because we were friends. And he said, "Oh, are you calling for a part?" Because I guess it had just come out in the trades that it sold. And I said, "No, I'm going to prove to you that I'm not calling for a part by not taking a part." Because he kept saying, "I want you on the show. What do you want to play?" Because Richard Dean Anderson and I, we have like this really good chemistry. And he said, "You guys have such good chemistry. It'd be great to have you on the show with him, so you could star on the show." So I said no. It was so dumb. But I wish I'd had a time machine and I could go back and change a lot of things. That would be one of the shows I would change. But that's such a good show.
Yeah, don't we all? It's probably one of the reasons why we love Quantum Leap as much as we do.
Yeah.
The idea of like being able to go back and set some things right. Here's just a random question. You made me think of it when you mentioned Blossom, because I know that he had a lot of involvement and directed quite a few episodes. I think might have even been a producer. But did you ever get to work with or be around Bill Bixby when he was on the show at all?
Yeah, I didn't. I would go to the set a lot because my friends were on the show. Really great guy. I didn't get to work with him. He wasn't the director. It was Gil Younger.
Okay.
The episode I did. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just remember I can remember when he passed away, and it had been not long after. I think one of his last things was directing an episode of Blossom, and I could remember as a kid, I loved the Incredible Hulk, and so
Me too.
when he passed, like seeing some of the sort of like behind the scenes footage of some of the last work that he did, I'm pretty sure it was actually on Blossom. So yeah, I had to ask because I've always thought pretty highly of him and loved his work as well.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Going back to this episode of Quantum Leap again, one of the things that I had read recently, Scott had kind of expressed some frustration after the fact because the show had kind of been hanging in the balance as to whether or not it would be renewed or canceled. And he had been on the record as saying that he was very frustrated that it all came down to 2 episodes in May as to whether or not they would get renewed. And it just so happens that those 2 episodes were Color of Truth, which aired the week before, which a lot of people identify as like the first classic episode of the series. Dealing with racism, he leaps into a black man for the first time. Deborah Pratt, incredible writing, incredible cast. Yeah. And then the other episode was Camikaze Kid, and both episodes had built on the ratings. Like Color of Truth got great ratings, and then Camikaze Kid got even better ratings, and due to those 2 episodes, it basically kind of like saved the show. And I'm curious kind of like how you feel about that, and how aware, I mean, obviously at the time that you were shooting there would have been no awareness, but how aware you were after the fact that was the case.
I didn't know that at all, but I love that I love that they were delving into that. I mean, I'm sure that the new Quantum Leap will delve into it more. I hope it does. I didn't know that. I had no idea. I actually, I was so young at the time. I didn't even really watch the show because I was so young.
I mean, I was curious because you said it was an unknown and you almost passed on it. Like, where exactly were they in the filming of the series in general?
I think they were on the first episode ever of filming it. I think they had shot the pilot and that's it. And so they were, I think so. I mean, I know maybe not, because I went to work pretty soon after getting the part, like 2 days later.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was, nothing had aired yet. No one had heard of the show yet. So I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who anybody was, actually. I was just, I was still in school. Yeah, but I'm so glad I didn't pass on it. I'm so thankful. This is one of the shows that I'm most proud of. Quantum Leap and MacGyver are my 2 favorite shows I've ever done.
That's so cool to hear. MacGyver was another one that I was pretty obsessed with as a kid. My grandfather and I would watch that one together.
Yeah.
So Camikaze Kid, much again like Color of Truth, having a large issue at its core, like racism. Camikaze Kid dealt a lot with domestic violence and toxic masculinity. And one of the things that I was kind of surprised with upon rewatching it a few years ago when we did our initial episode on it is how well the episode handles and navigates both of those issues, especially at a time when something like toxic masculinity, that wasn't even a term that we used. But I think that Sam in particular, like, his character having to navigate some of these things, and even going back to the kiss for a moment, the kiss is never about like Sam getting to kiss somebody. It's always about the fact that like Jill has to have her first kiss in order for Sam to leap out. Like, it really is about you, which I love. And I'm kind of just curious, looking back on the episode, if you have any feelings or thoughts on the way that it dealt with domestic violence and toxic masculinity over the course, of 45 minutes, which can be difficult to do.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't involved in that storyline, so I didn't really get to be around that much. And because I was so young, I only focus on I was also in school, so I was focusing on the pages that I was in. So I didn't get to be involved in that part. But I remember watching it and being uncomfortable because of the violence. Yeah. Yeah, that was hard. That was really hard to watch, but it was a great subject to breach. I mean, they really did that show was so different than any other show at the time, breaching those subjects. We didn't have any other shows like that, did we? I mean, that you can think of, like Quantum Leap?
No, I mean, it was definitely very, very unique. I mean, there are other shows I think that certainly dealt with subject matter like that, but they were also, they were like your St. Elsewhere's and your Hill Street Blues and stuff like that, as opposed to Quantum Leap, which did it in a very different manner.
Yeah, such a unique show.
And the fact that there are only 2 actors who appear in every episode, so everybody else, the guest cast, is coming in, and especially like at this early point, like you don't know what the show is like. It's a weird time travel show, whatever. And I can't remember if you've actually said this since we've hit record, but like one of the reasons you almost turned it down is because the script kept going between Sam and Cam, and you thought it was a typo. And
I thought it was a typo
because it's like what. This is a weird time travel show with the guy from Eisenhower and Lutz. What the hell is going on?
Yeah. I remember reading the script. I kept saying to my agent, "There's a typo. They keep doing typos, and do they know what they're doing? And what? I don't get it. Like he's Cam and then he's Sam. No one really explained it to me. So I got to the set, and it was nighttime. Remember, it was night. It was late at night, and I met with Don Belisario, and they explained the whole concept. And I was like, "Oh, okay, now I get it." And then we read. And then I think we adjusted it and read it again. And then they said, you got the part. So yeah, it's so weird. It's weird how you have some memories that you just really remember so well. And then others not as well. That's one that I remember really well that night. I remember where we were, who was in the room, like where we were sitting, and how cool it was. Such a great feeling getting that show and hanging out with all those people. Like it was so magical.
That's fantastic.
What was Don like at this point? Because obviously Don at this point had produced other shows, written other shows. Like he was pretty seasoned, pretty experienced, but it always felt like Quantum Leap was very much a passion project of his, something that he really wanted to do and explore things in a very different manner than say, Magnum PI or any of the other shows that he'd worked on before. So I'm curious, especially knowing this is in the very early days of the show, what he was like, in those initial meetings, and then, how much interaction you had with him, during the filming of the episode.
During the audition, he was the one that kept adjusting like what I did, and he was like kind of fatherly, very just nurturing and kind, very kind, a lot like Scott, and remember I was really young, so they were maybe that's why they were really kind. And he wasn't really on set much that I remember, but we knew each other well enough where I could call him. I called him one time. I said, "Can I audition for Jag?" And because there was a part we saw he said, "Yeah, of course." And because my agent couldn't get me in. Next thing I know, I was going to producers and I got the part. So he's always been wonderful. And I remember going to the set after to Universal because I was auditioning for some other show, and I ran into Dean or Scott, and they said, "Oh, come have." They wanted to show. It was Dean. He wanted to show me the set of the one of the new episodes, and it was really cool because I remember Don's wife was there so long ago. And I remember sitting with Dean on some steps one day talking about his childhood, and I didn't know he was a kid actor, and he was telling me all, like I should have had a pen and paper or recording it. He told me so many cool stories. Like he was such a great guy, and getting to work with him again in Jag was awesome.
Wow,
it was
cool.
A lot of the same people from Quantum Leap worked on Jag, a lot of the crew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because it's something that we've talked about before when, just reading other credits from actors that have guested on the show, you see a lot of them, again, working with the team on Jag. And, that has always kind of been our assumption that a lot of the same people working together. And part of the reason is because they worked well together and they probably enjoyed it. So your experience, doing Jag and coming back kind of into the fold, I mean, did you feel just welcomed back and getting the opportunity to work with all these people again years later?
Oh yeah. I think it's when you find people that work together well and that you get along with as well as all those people did back then. And how, I mean, you would go to the set and it was like a party every day. You would feel good. You just felt everyone was kind to each other the way it should be. So I think they just kept the same people together. I mean, you want to work with people that you get along with and that come to the set and they're professional. They're going to show up on time. They're going to be prepared, because there's been shows where I've worked with people where they weren't prepared and they didn't know their lines, and it's so frustrating. So you want to hire the people that you know are going to do a great job. And so Don Belisario is smart. I mean, that's why he's so successful. He knows that. And I remember Scott saying to me back when I was a kid, always stay professional, always, be on time, know your lines, be, represent. And he was one of the people that really taught me how to be on set. It was him and Jamie Lee Curtis. And like, those were the two that really instilled in me to be kind and to be good, be a good human being. Because it's easy to be the opposite. But I find the people that are the nicest that I've worked with were the most talented because they were secure and they were the easiest to get along with. I never really worked with any jerks, and I've worked with a lot of people. I've never worked with anyone that's been a jerk, and I've been lucky. Like Michael J. Fox was amazing to work with, and Christopher Walken was like a dream come true. I loved him. Christopher Guest. I've worked with some cool people, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I know one of the things one of the first things I read about your involvement in Quantum Leap that I've always admired is like you almost turned it down. And having been an actor before, and sometimes just like I will do anything. Like I have just done embarrassing, horrible crap for like a small basically stipend of a paycheck or like the promise of like getting exposure in some way whatsoever. Like I know you said like you've had some regrets as far as like things you've turned down, but like I just admire like how you're like no, this doesn't sound like the best opportunity. I'm going to pass on. I'm going to do another thing. I think there's something very admirable about that, and the fact like like you said, like you've had the pleasure of not having to work with a lot of jerks in the business, and I don't know if a lot of people can say that in Hollywood.
Yeah, and I was naive. Like, if I had known who I was going in to read for, I think I would not. I never would have passed on it. And I think the only reason why I was going to not go to the callback was because I had just tested over at NBC, and I was so devastated because I thought I was going to get to do the Chris Carter show.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the only reason why, because I just thought I was so sad about not getting that one. And I had tested already for it the day before, and then Chris Carter, I was his first choice, and it was just, I was so sad. So that was the only reason why. Obviously, Quantum Leap was well written, but I didn't understand it. That's another thing. Like,
sure.
I'm like, what am I? It was such an original idea and such a different idea. So, as a kid, I grew up watching the Brady Bunch and like Different Strokes, and I didn't understand the concept. So. Yeah. So as soon as I went in, they made it all make sense. And I'm so glad I didn't pass on that.
Sure.
I'd be regretting that one.
And forgive me, you said Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know, what have you worked with her?
Oh, I did the movie called The Big Picture with Kevin Bacon and Martin Short, and Christopher Guest directed it. And she's married to Christopher Guest.
Oh, okay.
So, and she just would be on set and just the nicest person you could ever meet in your life. Just so kind, and made sure my dad got into the premiere, and a really great person.
Oh, that's great. I heard a story about her recently that for one of the latest Halloween movies, I don't know if it was the latest one or one of the more previous ones that she was in, is that actually she made it a practice. Like she asked everybody on the crew to like wear name tags, not in a rude way, but in a way that she could actually greet everybody and like know their name in a very sweet way. And that on the last day of filming, like when they were filming like her final standoff with Michael, they all came onto the set, and instead of their name tags, they had a thing that said, "We are Laurie Strode."
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, she's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's very sweet.
That's so sweet. Yeah. And then at the beginning of all the episodes, my character, the Kiss, was there. You and I talked about that the other day.
Yeah, you mentioned this on the phone last week when we were chatting beforehand, that you had been in the opening credits, but then they took you out because your agent my agent wanted money. I'm like, you guys, that's the thing, is agents will ruin things because they get greedy. And I find like the people that are the business side, they do it for money. The actors do it because they have the passion for the acting and for the art. I'm the person that I would do anything for free as long as I'm having fun. But my agent wanted money. So all of a sudden we're watching it. I think the week after, my parents were watching it, and I was gone. They took me off of it. So I was so upset. Yeah. My agent ruined it. It wasn't me. I was fine with that. I was so excited. It was my agent that, they wanted to get paid. So for sure.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
bummed.
those moments, and in the intro and the credits really became iconic in a lot of ways for fans of the show because we got to see them week in and week out, and so they're very memorable. And I think in general, Camikaze Kid is one of the more memorable episodes of the series, and I think along with Color of Truth in that first season, I know that Camikaze Kid is probably my favorite of the season, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of what we've talked about. And I think I think looking back on it, the charm and humor and heart that you brought to the role of Jill is definitely a part of the success of the episode. So as as a fan, as someone that loves the show, thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for liking it. I'm just so thankful to have been part of such a cool show and the fans of the show are the nicest. I'm a sci-fi fan. I love anything about CERN, time travel, Montauk Project. So yeah, I'm so thankful to have been a part of this amazing show and these people that I got to work with at such a young age that they molded my life because of working with them in a great way.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, ditto everything that Sam said. And like, we don't do a lot of interviews. Like, we have some coming up, but like, I think we said on the phone the other day, like, until a few months ago, we were just two tired dads doing a podcast for a TV show that had been off the air for 30 years. And now, because of new Quantum Leap, like, these new opportunities have come up. And so yesterday we did our pre-chat, and I was like sitting in a Trader Joe's parking lot chatting with you on the phone. I'm like, I'm talking to Jill from Camikaze Kid of Quantum Leap. Like, what is my life right now? It was, that was a very cool moment. And this interview has been a very wonderful, cool moment. So thank you for giving us your time.
Oh my gosh, anytime. I'm thankful you guys are doing this.
Yeah, well, we love it. We love what the show represents. We love the possibilities. I think the amazing thing about having the show back on the air is that there's so many things that it can say and so many things that it can do because of its unique format. And knowing that you were a part of that very, very early on in the show, again, it was something that as soon as Dennis told me that we were going to get to do this, I was just sort of like, well, that's going to be awesome. So so thank you for joining us, and and we would love to do it again sometime. So if the opportunity arises, like, we won't even have to talk about Quantum Leap and talk about other stuff.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I would love that. I would love that with COVID and everything shutting down. I love stuff like this. I love amazing podcast shows, and they really took off during COVID, and it's been the coolest thing in the world now is for me. I love watching podcasts. So it is an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
You know what? Before we leave, I do want to ask you just two more quick things. One, speaking of podcasts and everything that they've kind of come to be, especially over the past few years, have you ever had any thought or the opportunity to take part in any of the narrative podcasts that are out there that are telling stories? Because obviously sci-fi tends to be a medium that I think really plays well in that audio medium, and knowing your voice work. Is that something that you would like to do or you've had the chance to do yet?
I kind of took a break when COVID started, which is probably the stupidest thing I could have done. I took a break from everything because voiceovers then took off, and that's my thing. And those are the only people that were working. But no, I kind of just took a break a few years ago and just only work on Star Wars and Shrek. And I stopped auditioning because I've been working since I was a kid. I kind of needed a break, but I think now that I'm wanting to come back to it more. Yeah, I would love to. I as long as it's a fun project, I sign me up.
Well, and you kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that was good to say, especially sci-fi. Anything sci-fi, I would love to be a part of, for sure.
You kind of already answered this in a way, but I am curious, especially for our listeners, do you have anything else, kind of on the horizon, or is there anything that you would like to tell people that you're working on, or where they can find you online, that sort of stuff?
Well, yeah, there's a show that I have two friends, and the three of us are doing a show. It's kind of like a reality show. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a really cool idea. And my neighbor loves it. And I've had so many ideas stolen, so I don't want this one stolen if anybody hears it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's going to be funny. It's a really cool idea because a lot of my friends are musicians. So I was singing backup for Bobby Kimball from the band Toto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like gosh, a lot of like Spencer Davis. I sing, so I had a record deal and I sang years ago, but I still sing for Disney and I sing a lot for Shrek, like Thriller Night we did for Shrek.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, I'm doing a lot of singing, but thanks to the singing, I've met a lot of major singers. So the show that I'm doing is involved. I can't even say what it is because it's involved with that. It's
Okay.
really
Okay.
you'll understand. When you see it, you'll be like, oh, I get what you're saying now. Yeah. But it's so I'm doing that, and then I'm also producing a movie that Corey Haim wrote a long time ago. So we're getting that made. Yeah. So that's been a very hard thing to get off the ground, but we're finally getting it off the ground. But I want to go more on the producing side, and I would love to go back to acting one day, but not in a stressful way. A show that I could maybe like do a few episodes of and not be the lead on it, and the pressure is too hard. So
Absolutely.
I think nowadays I like to kind of step back and be on the other side of it for a change.
Sure.
On the producing side and the writing side would be great.
Well, that's so cool. You'll have to keep us updated because whatever it is, I mean, we'll certainly be interested in seeing what you've got coming. And I think working on that project, Corey's is incredibly cool. He was such an incredibly talented person, and I know that there was a lot of hardship and a lot of awfulness, unfortunately, in his life. But I just think that you look at his work, early on, and there was so much talent and so much potential, and so I'm really interested in seeing what this is as well.
Yeah, he was a great guy, amazing actor, amazing guy.
Well, Holly, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your work. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
All right, really appreciate your time.
Bye.
Thanks, Holly. Bye.
Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Hey everyone, Dennis here. Just a couple quick notes before we end the episode. Thank you again so much for listening. If you'd like to leave us some feedback, send us an email at fateswidewheelpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is fateswidewheelpodcast@gmail.com. If you are listening to this in the month of December of 2022, take a look out. We have a couple more episodes before the series comes back from the fall break. Next week, we're going to be having our conversation with Dean Georgeris. He's going to be walking us through the creative decisions that went behind the first 8 episodes of the new series. We are really excited to share that conversation with you. And then we're going to do one more episode before the show comes back. We're going to revisit Stand By Ben, and that's going to include an interview with Eric Lee Hoffman, who played Sullivan, the camp director, in that episode. And we're really excited to share that conversation with you as well. In the meantime, have a great week, and as Sam always likes to say, leap responsibly.